those times in games where there's one aspect that exists just to annoy you, that one thing that really shouldn't be there, but it is anyway? Well, this is a top 10 list of those pointless things in games that should burn in hell. Now, a lot of these are RPG based, as those are the most games I played, though some can apply to any kind of game. So let's get started. Number 10. Bosses immune to status effects or debuffs. So this is the situation. You have trained up one of your party members to have great spells or techniques that give the status effects to enemies. Poison, stun, whatever. Then you have another party member that can debuff and lower stats of the enemy. When you come to a boss in the game, you want to use these useful skills you've acquired. But wait, the boss is immune to both of those skills. What a fucking waste of time. While not all games suffer from this, it's very common in RPGs where you can't infect many bosses throughout the game with status effects or have a chance to weaken them. Sometimes they are present, but they're only like 5% likely to get poisoned or something ridiculous like that. This leads to people avoiding skills that cause status effects because when you face bosses, you're pretty much useless. Number 9. Enemies that make you lose stuff. These are the scariest kinds of monsters out there. They have the ability to steal your shit. You know, that skill that only you should really have, they now have. My god. So this isn't super horrible, especially if the stealing is limited to certain items or level of item, but it's not cool when it's not restricted, where they can steal weapons, unbuyable items. It's a nightmare. In Final Fantasy Tactics, there are skills where the enemy can steal the equipment right off your guys as you fight. Holy shit, no. Number 8. Unskippable cutscenes. This is pretty self-explanatory with many games. Cutscenes are placed before important, strong boss fights, and if you lose or do something wrong, you'll have to restart from the last save file. What happens then is you must watch the entire bullshit cutscene again in order to have another shot at winning against the boss or achieve the task at hand. It's the worst thing in the world when you're angry for losing, but then have to watch the same shit again and again. Number 7. Grinding levels. While grinding for levels has lessened over the years, whenever a time comes where you have to grind, it's the worst. My belief is that a game should progress at an appropriate pace where you learn game mechanics and are able to go at the pace of the story without having to divert and halt your progression because of sudden difficulty. Some may find grinding levels fun and therapeutic, while people like me find them annoying as hell, as I want to know what happens next in the game but can't stop because of fucking difficulty and it's shit pacing and oh! Number 6. Instant death spells or moves.
I am a shadow, the true self.
The pinnacle of cheat moves. Instant death moves and spells are fucking stupid. 1, they're useless against bosses like status effects, as they would just break the whole game if they were possible. 2, they usually cost a lot to cast or use, making them pretty much useless for the party to have. 3, mass instant death spells can just wipe out your party without any possibility to avoid it. It undermines all of your experience and skill in the game and just gives you a big fuck you to your face. The worst ones are in the Persona games, where if just the main character dies, it's game over. It doesn't even need to be the whole party, which is just fucking great. Number 5. Mandatory minigames. Minigames shouldn't be involved in advancing the story for whatever reason. They just shouldn't. Yet there are games where you have to perform tedious and sometimes finicky tasks in order to progress the story. Why? To waste time? To show off stupid, pointless tasks in the game? Sure, I don't know. Now, I don't mind them as side attractions, but when they can block you from advancing the story, that's just ridiculous. A horrible example is Star Ocean 3's Beetle Tunnel bullshit, where you have to navigate through mining tunnels early in the game in order to get to the other side of a mountain and continue onwards to the next town. Or how about the idiotic task in Breath of Fire 3, where you have to make sushi for a mayor in order to gain permission to use boats? Fucking sushi! You have to collect the ingredients, learn how to knead rice properly, and make it so he loves it! Why the fuck is this necessary? Number 4. Mandatory party members. Usually for most games, you have a set of people that you just love to use, and you rarely take on any new characters, as they just don't really mesh well enough. But that's all thrown out the window when you absolutely must take someone you have never touched just because the segment you've stumbled upon in the main plot involves them in some way, and they have to be in the party. So you take them on, realize they're 30 levels lower than you, and die every time you get touched by something. Some games have a way of evening out levels, giving some experience to party members who are outside the normal battles. The absolute worst type of mandatory party member is an escort or something completely different to the game you are playing, such as Ashley in Resident Evil 4. And of course, it has the rule that if they die, it's game over. It tests your sanity and makes you experience heart attacks every time you know you have to fight something. Number 3. Characters dying or leaving the party. So, mandatory party members suck, but you know what's worse? When someone in your main party suddenly dies or leaves the party permanently. It's like, thanks for that, I now have to level grind my stupid comrade who will replace them. Thanks so much. What can be even more grating is that some games, when that person dies or leaves, they take all of the awesome rare equipment you've given to them, as you had no idea they were going to disappear from the game. So unless you're psychic or you read a walkthrough or just hate the character and never use them, you'll be absolutely fuming. Number 2. Boss fights where you have to lose.
You're a bit of a mess up. Chris, take a piece of the action.
Unbeatable bosses. Hopeless boss fights. Whatever you want to call it, it's the boss fight where you must lose in order to continue with the story. So how do you know you have to lose? Well, most of the time you don't, and you end up wasting a bunch of time and possibly rare items. And for what? Absolutely nothing at all. Sure, you can argue that these types of bosses promote character development and self-realization, but do they really have to do that? Some bosses you can actually win against when you're not supposed to, and you are rewarded with the same scene as if you had lost, and the game continues to mock you that you sucked during that fight when you clearly fucking won.
Target the supports.
Number 1. Breakable weapons. I have vented my frustration at this type of game mechanic over 3 years ago, and their tendency to break.
Any fucking game where your weapon breaks frustrates me to no end.
Eesh, horrible microphone. This shit is what makes you quit games. In certain games, weapons or whatever you have that has damage meters, if they exceed their damage capacity, they will break and you will lose that weapon you have worked so hard at getting or leveling up. Plenty of games have it, such as Fallout games, the Saga series, but the worst offender is still Dark Cloud. In the game, you level up weapons and transform them into various new, powerful weapons along the way. This takes ages, hours and hours of dedication and fighting enemies to achieve. If you forget to repair your weapon in time, you lose all of it, and start at square one, your beginner weapon that you started with at the very beginning of the game. What use is a weak beginner weapon midway through the final boss dungeon? It doesn't do any damage, and that character is honestly fucked. In some games, it's inevitable that you'll lose your weapon. Kudelka has breakable weapons, but you accumulate so many blades and hammers, it doesn't matter too much. It's still crushing when you have the message come up that your favorite weapon just broke, and now you're weak as piss. While some games you can repair the broken weapons, it's the games that laugh at your face and tell you to manage your weapon usage better that need to burn.